So I think that you're through these practical sort of strategies that you're suggesting and that you elaborate on in the book, you're you're entering um, you're entering a particular terrain that I want you to talk a little bit more about. And Peter, you and I know each other a little bit, and you're familiar with some of my perspectives on things. So this question probably won't surprise you. And I agree with you and David Harvey that utopian thinking is necessary. But blueprints, people are always going to be foiled by their own blueprints. Like history just doesn't work that way and evolve in that manner. Um, but my question really is are ethics enough? And is virtuosic presence enough? I mean, given the time sensitive nature and urgency of the conflicts that we're facing, the grim realities of ecological destruction, mass extinction. And one question I think a skeptic would ask here is, does this emphasis on ethics and presence, and despite the rich relational framework you develop, does it reduce change to individual psychology? And I know that you're well aware of this because at one point in the book, you talk about mindfulness and about how certain forms of mindfulness, as they're sort of circulating and proliferating today, are really oriented to adapting people to the crisis we're in, as opposed to, looking at the root causes of it. But there does seem to be a category that's missing here, which is the category of the political. And so how would you respond to skepticism? The struggle over AI and the future, writ large, is not simply about values, but important and necessary political confrontations over the distribution of wealth and power, the organization of institutions and systems. And part of that, the time-sensitive nature of the crisis we're facing is that would also entail like intentionality, maybe not blueprints, but real intentionality. And sorry, just to go on just a little bit more, I really appreciated what you had to say about intercultural dialogue and difference. The shared, the sense of shared and mutual implication and interdisciplinary engagements that can begin a process of developing the capacities necessary to proliferate virtuosity. But I still am left with lingering questions about power and the political. So I don't know, how would you address those issues?
Well, there's certainly no denying that politics are a huge part of the predicaments that we find ourselves in. And I mean, part of what I argue in the book is that we really are in a period of a new great game. The old great game in the 19th, early 20th century is played over land and labor, resources. And the new great game is being played over time and consciousness. It's about attention and consciousness. And so it's not geopolitics, it's chronopolitics. How much time can we take from people? And as we take their time, they're not able to do things they might have otherwise done. If you're absorbed in watching mass media or surfing the internet for 5 or 6 hours a day, 5 or 6 hours a day that you're not growing vegetables, taking care of the elderly, playing with your kids, which then results in having to pay for elder services, having to pay for babysitters, having to pay for psychologists for your kids because they grew up screwed up, etc. I mean, it's anytime you export attention out of a family, a community, the family and community begins to wither and needs extra attention. It'll need fertilizer, it'll need mechanical, tools to get in and pull the weeds out eventually because they've gotten so thick. If we take our attention out, we're really doing a disservice to us. How long does it take for our human garden to get so overgrown that there's no digging out? I'm not sure. I think we're probably looking at about 20 years, something like that. I don't think we're looking at 2 years, maybe something like 20. It's not going to be 200. And so there is a political question. How do we get the political will to start making these differences? And part of the new great game is there is a lot at stake. There's a lot at stake in the colonization of consciousness. The people at the top have gotten fabulously wealthy and powerful. And what's the response to that? The argument that I make in the book is that we need to have a shift from playing finite games, win-lose competition, to infinite games. The point of playing a finite game is you play to win. And that's what governments are doing. It's what corporations are doing. It's what we're taught as individuals to do our entire life in the education system, on the sports fields, in entertainment, to be able to be the person that gets the most hits or internet views or blah, blah, blah. We're told to fight, to win, to get the edge. Somebody else is going to lose? Too bad. You know, the good will rise to the top. I mean, that's the theory. And playing games, the power games, what you play when you play finite games is you get power and exert power. Playing infinite games, you don't play to win. You play infinite games to improve the quality of play. Marriage is an infinite game. If you get married for the purpose of chalking it off your list of life duties, you're not going to stay married very long. You know, if you think getting married is about experiencing the wonder of blossoming love and romantic connection, and that's going to just get deeper and deeper and bigger forever, you're not going to stay married long. Marriage takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of work, it takes strength. What is strength? Strength is the capacity to do what's necessary to keep everybody who's involved in playing that game to stay in the game and to improve the quality of play. You want an increasingly high quality marriage. The marriage that you had in the first year is not, I hope, the one that gets celebrated 10 years or 20 years down the line. When you have your 20th anniversary, hopefully you're celebrating an entirely different kind of relationship than you had on the first anniversary. A better, more virtuosic, superlative relationship, ideally. That takes strength. And so what I think we need is a politics of strength, not a politics of power, which is what we've had. So this is a conceptual change. But what does it mean? It means getting people to get involved politically in a way that is not buying into the win-loss competitive framework. The competitive framework of trying to get power, which is the ability to exert control over the situation and thereby over other people in the situation. That game has been played. We know it doesn't lead in a positive direction. It's not superlative. It's good for those who win, and it's bad for everybody else. We should stop. We need a new kind of politics. What does that politics look like? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, but I think that what we need institutionally at the very least is a disengagement of the representatives of populations, if we're working in a democratic setting, that the higher up you go, the less you get paid and the less power you have. That the people at the top really should ultimately simply be servants rather than people who are establishing and directing policy. I think we need an inversion of where policy directives are coming from, but I think that it's really great to have people who are experts in fields deciding what practices need to be engaged in to put policy recommendations at play. But I think that recommendations about what's not working in society should come from the people who are most affected by those dynamics. And that's all of us, not the 1% or the 10th of 1% or the 100th of 1% who are now basically running politics everywhere in the world. So we need resistance to that. And how does it come about? Well, we could try telling these politicians until we're blue in the face, get with it, up your spiritual ante, come on, you know, be a real contributing member of playing an infinite game of an entirely new kind of an arrangement. It's not going to happen. They're not going to do. Who gives up power willingly? But what I think we can do, and partly it's through things like these connectivity strikes and other mass movements, is letting those people who currently have power, the people at the top of the corporate world, the people at the top of the political world, the people at the top of the entertainment world, because that's also highly influential, letting them know, look, you could be leaders in this global transformation, or you could be recognized in the next generation as the ones who are the dinosaurs holding on. We've got a new way coming. There's a wave of things that are going to change, and it's grassroots. It's a groundswell. It's coming from the earth. And we're going to take inspiration from ecology and from the earth, and it's going to grow like a groundswell. It's going to happen. You can either be part of it and a leader of it and use your resources to contribute to that, or you cannot. It's your choice. And I think once you get these competitive people on the mindset that, you know what, it could benefit me personally as well as financially or politically to be a leader in this, then there's something to be said for that. And I think that we know that that methodology works because Trump got elected. That was his appeal. He told people, look, I hear you. I hear your pain. I feel your pain. I will do for you if I get elected and I go into Washington, I'm going to drain the swamp for you guys. I'm going to be on your side. I will be your man in office. I don't think he was or ever intended honestly to be such a man, but the power of that persuasion is effective. You can get people to take inchoate inclinations and make them into a political movement, which is what he successfully did. He created this political movement of 30% of the US population that will be diehard loyal to his aims for a long time to come. The counter to that's going to be education, and that's long term. And American society is going to take a generation or two to dig itself out of that. But in the meantime, we can get leadership that actually does take these new values, these new ways of understanding things, take them seriously enough and to say, look, I'm going to sacrifice what I could have had in order to pull this off, to contribute to it. I don't think Gates will do it. I don't think Bezos is going to do it. I don't think, any of the people that are at the very top in the US are going to do it. Where I find some potential is in Asia, maybe from Africa, maybe from Europe. But I think that there are people in Asia that have competed themselves to the top of the pyramid and have found it a very empty and lonely place. And who are starting to say, look, we need something else. We need a new way of thinking things through. And so I think there is potential, but it's going to take global predicament resolving commitment. And people at the top need to be participant in that. So we need some bodhisattvas, politicians, bodhisattva bureaucrats, bodhisattva business people, bodhisattva generals and military folks. We need bodhisattvas in all these walks of life.